right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Running with Wolves. So today we're going to talk about something that I feel like a lot of people may disagree with me on, but it's one of my unpopular opinions and I feel that we need to talk about it. So I want to talk about why I don't subscribe to the belief that sales is difficult or hard, because I think that based off of hundreds of conversations that I have had with other business owners, so many people sit there and say, Savannah, I don't understand why you say that sales are easy. Or they've been tricked by other like Instagram marketing experts to be like, oh, sales is easy. You just put it out into the universe and it just drops it into your lap. That's not what we're talking about. Very much what I am talking about when it comes to sales being easy is knowing what buttons to push to get your audience to buy from you. And it becomes really effortless in terms of, like I said, getting people to buy because you know what to say and you serve it to them on a silver platter. But then on top of that, the content creation side becomes really effortless as well because you know what to talk about over and over and over again. So with that being said, I want to talk about my story in terms of creating really effortless sales because it wasn't always that way. And I actually think there were a couple of really significant shifts and changes that we made within our own marketing strategy in order to get us to a place where sales was really easy. So I want to share just kind of like some of the mistakes that we made along the way and some of the things that we actually did really well along the way. Because I will say that, and I've talked about this with my team, I actually feel like this year has really been like the easiest marketing and sales year for us in a way where it's like just started clicking, honestly. It's gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, yeah, like marketing and sales is no longer the thing that we have to hyper fixate on within our business. We're just in a different phase now, which is really cool. So with that being said, obviously you guys know my story. So within the first 6 months of starting my business, I had made six figures. And within 1 year, we were making 50K months, which was super incredible. Obviously, we had very, very fast growth, which was really cool. But during that first year, I will say I felt like trying to get people to work with me was like pulling teeth a lot of the time. It was like, hey, let me hop onto a sales call for 30 or 40 minutes with you and pitch you on every single reason why you should work with us, discount our services, throw in like an extra gift essentially, or like an additional service if you were to work with us to like really justify the investment. And that got really frustrating, to be totally honest, because I'm sitting there saying like, we offer this kick-ass service, and yet I'm sitting here having to try to convince people as to why they should invest in this kick-ass service. Like they should just know how incredible it is and invest with us. What we were doing during that time when it came to our marketing was we were very much fixated on like trying to kind of prove our value and our authority and our expertise. So every single day we were showing up creating content that provided value, that was educating our audience, kind of giving our opinion, but we never really talked about our service as a solution to what our audience needed. And obviously, if you guys have listened to any of our other episodes, you've heard me talk about how important it is to really showcase your service as a solution. And so because of that, no one in our audience was like, holy crap, I need this service. They just were like, oh yeah, you seem to know what you're talking about. So that created a ton of resistance when it came to getting people on sales calls or sales conversations. I was met with a lot of, that's too expensive. It's not the right time. I can't afford it. I'm trying to save up for a house right now. I have to invest in something else in my business, right? It was like pretty much every excuse in the book is what we were given as to why people couldn't work with us. And the key shift that I really saw, honestly, was when we started to introduce new products into our product suite and started marketing those in addition to our agency services. So we had to get really good at creating like attraction within our audience, getting people to constantly be funneled into our audience, building trust with them really quickly, and positioning our brand and our services as something that they truly could not live without. I call it creating brand piranhas, and then actually converting them into a sale. So that was something that I felt like created a lot of like learning experiences for us, honestly, because we had to get to a point where we realized, okay, if all we're doing is educating about these programs or about what it is that we do, sales is always going to feel hard. So I felt like the biggest shift that happened for us was, like I tell all of you guys, we literally started talking about our service as a solution constantly. And on top of that, I got really, really clear on exactly, I would say probably the top 5 things that our audience needed to hear in order to buy from us, like the things that they took into consideration, which was based off of their buyer types, which is something obviously that I talk to you guys a lot as well about, and how important it is, because basically your buyer types is like getting essentially this like little cheat sheet into what it is that you need to say to get somebody to buy from you. If you know what they already take into consideration before they make a purchase or before they make an investment, you can use sales psychology tactics to talk about those things to build trust with them faster and to give them everything that they need to hear in order to actually buy from you. So that's truly, like I said, I think kind of what made the biggest difference. And so now flash forward, like I said, it's been 4 years since I started my business, and we have a multi-million-dollar marketing agency at this point, or marketing company, or whatever you want to call it. And like I said, in the last year, things have never felt easier because we've really, I would say, dialed in exactly what we need to say and how we need to say it. So now content creation is really fun for us because we just get to come up with fun and new and unique ways to talk about the things that we've been talking about constantly. And it just continues to compound the results. So that was kind of like what my story looked like. And the thing that I really love about the strategies or the frameworks that we use is that it makes it super crystal clear in terms of how you need to create results. So basically the buyer's journey that we've been seeing a lot for not only ourselves, but for our clients in terms of how we're creating sales within marketing is people are finding us on TikTok. They're finding all of our clients on TikTok, brands, businesses, and these are brands or businesses who sell $5 products, $15 products, all the way up to 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100K packages. People are finding them on TikTok and they're actually making purchases or investments into their products or their services. So there's like this myth out there that if you sell really high ticket products or services, no one's going to buy from you on TikTok, or your target audience isn't hanging out there or consuming that kind of content. Wrong. Absolutely wrong. Like 100%, 110% wrong. So the reality is that because TikTok is like the biggest search engine right now, aside from Pinterest and Google, people are genuinely going to TikTok looking for what they are trying to purchase or invest in, binging that brand or business's content there. And if they're not purchasing directly from TikTok, they're going to Instagram and they're likely binging your content there. And on top of that, they're binging your stories and your highlights, because what we've definitely seen happen in the last year or so is there's really been this significant shift when it comes to the way that people are going about buying, or the content that they need to see from brands or businesses in order to actually make that purchase or investment. They're really looking for that authentic side of brands and businesses. And so I think it's really important to understand that so that you can emphasize and put your effort into places where they're going to be consuming that authentic content, i.e. your Instagram stories, i.e. TikTok videos, right? So they're binging our content there. And what's really cool about the way we go about our strategy on Instagram is we are creating not only content that sells our service or our client services or products as a solution, but we're anticipating and historically looking at, okay, what potential objections has our audience had in the past, and how can we infuse that into our content and handle it so that as they're binging our content, they're getting that objection handled, and they literally don't even have any questions or objections when the sales conversation happens, if it even happens. A lot of the times, they're just going to the link in our bio and they're straight up purchasing from there, as they are with all of our clients. Or if they have a question, it's more logistical, like, when does this program start? When can I join? Questions like that, not like, oh, I can't afford it, or oh, it's just not the right time. Like, for example, today, I actually created a piece of content that was very much objection handling. And it was basically all about, while you for the last month have said, I'm going to try to do it on my own, here are the results that our clients have seen that actually moved in spite of the fear and made the investment in spite of the fear in the last 30 days. And we've talked about kick-ass results that our clients have seen in the last 30 days. People have videos going viral. They're getting thousands of new applications and leads in every single day. They're hitting 30, 40, 50, 60K months because of their content doing all of that sales for them. And so that was very much objection handling, because sometimes an objection that we get around our accelerator program is like, oh, well, I'm just going to try to do it on my own. So if somebody had come from TikTok all the way to Instagram, they were binging our content and they saw that on my story, and they had been thinking, oh, I'm just going to go and try to do it on my own, basically, or try to figure it out on my own, they'd be like, she's right, because I handled that in our content. So that's honestly what's been really cool. And all of this honestly takes, I would say, this whole sales process, like when someone finds us on TikTok and comes to Instagram and binges our content, can take anywhere from them for them to buy from us from 3 hours to literally 1 week. Like this stuff happens quickly, you guys, because we know the right buttons to push for our audience. And the reason why it's so easy is because we, like I said, play into that sales psychology. We play into the buyer types. We play into all of the things that we know cause them to actually move, rather than just saying, I'm just going to show up, provide value, tell my story, and hope that people buy from me. It's not a hope, it's cause and effect. It's literally like we say this, they buy. We handle this objection, they buy. So there's no question mark when it comes to your sales. That's the thing that really gets my goat, I feel like, about most people when it comes to marketing and sales, is they're like, oh, well, you just show up and the results will eventually happen. It's like, no, I want to show up and know that they're going to happen and know what I can do to actually create those results, which is why I love the sales psychology aspect of things so much. And I feel like really the only time that sales ever felt hard for me in my business was when, like I said, I wasn't solution selling. So if you're somebody where you're like, I genuinely feel like I'm trying to get people to buy from me and just want to bang my head against the wall at this point, this is really going to be a great opportunity for you to incorporate that solution selling tactic in there. And if you don't know the buyer types that are already in your audience, we have a whole podcast episode on that. So go and watch the podcast episode, figure out the buyer types that are in your audience. And then if you don't know how to figure out the solution that your products or your services offer, think through, we've done this visualization exercise before, but what is it that your target audience struggles with or deals with without your product or your service? And what does their life look like when they do have your product or your service? And think through, how does my product or my service create that reality for them that they're looking for or solve the problems that they're facing? And that, my friends, is how you talk about it as a solution. And last but not least, just don't overcomplicate it. I think there are so many people who, especially like when we work with our clients in the very beginning, they're like, I don't know if I should say this or that. The other thing about marketing and sales is it's really truly all about like messy action. It's all about, like I said, cause and effect, trying to see, okay, if I do this, what does my audience do? Looking at how they respond, looking at the marketing and sales data so you can continue to really refine your strategies and make sure that you're seeing results really, really quickly. So if sales is feeling hard right now, I want you to ask yourself these 3 things. Number 1, am I selling my product or service as a solution to my target audience's needs or desires? Or am I just talking about the details or the deliverables? Number 2, am I selling to the buyer types that make up my target audience? Do I even know the buyer types that make up my target audience? And do I know what they take into account when they want to make a purchase or an investment? If you don't know those things, that is going to be step number 1 for you to figure out. And then the last thing that I want you to ask yourself, especially if you're a service-based business owner, am I pre-handling objections? Now, there is a lot of talk, I would say, in the online space and just within other marketing and sales experts about whether or not you should be handling objections. In my opinion, it's all about understanding buyer behaviors. And some people will say, oh, I don't need to handle objections. I'm just not going to talk to people who aren't a qualified lead or aren't a good match. They probably actually are a really great match for your business and really genuinely want to make an investment into your service or even into your product, but they have concerns just like anyone would. And so it's like when you're in, a dating relationship, you first start dating. If somebody's like, hey, I'm traumatized from this past relationship and brings up like a concern that they have, you're not gonna be like, well, I'm gonna break up with you because I just don't want to deal with that. No, you're gonna be like, you're gonna soothe them. You're gonna be like, no, it's okay. We're not this way. It's all good. Like that's not how we're gonna interact, and you're safe in this relationship. Very much the same thing. If your target audience has concerns, if they have objections, you're not just going to say, well, sorry, I'm not going to talk to you if you have concerns or objections. You're going to say, no worries. Let me talk to you about why that's not correct and why you should make this purchase or this investment. So are you pre-handling objections? And if you're not, I would start incorporating that into your content in a way that makes sense for, again, the buyer types that are in your audience so that you can get them past any concerns, help them see your product or your service as a solution so that sales doesn't have to feel hard anymore. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little training tidbit on how you can make it so that when you post content, you're actually seeing sales and it doesn't feel like pulling teeth anymore. And I want to know your thoughts in terms of all of our like controversial opinions. Sales shouldn't feel hard. You should be pre-handling objections. I want to know your guys' thoughts. So if you're watching this on TikTok or on Instagram, pop it in the comments below. If you're listening to our podcast, send us what your thoughts are on one of our platforms, and we will talk to you in the next episode. Bye, guys.